The Galactic Dominion had ruled the stars for centuries. No species had ever resisted them. Their fleets, numbering in the thousands, had crushed every civilization that stood in their way. Planets burned, cities crumbled, and those who survived became slaves. Now their eyes were set on Earth, a primitive world, barely capable of space travel. The Dominion's High Council believed it would be an easy conquest. Admiral Vecren stood at the command bridge of the Dominion's flagship, Tyrant's Fist, gazing at the massive invasion fleet before him. 10,000 warships, each equipped with planet-destroying firepower, loomed over Earth's orbit. He watched as the blue-green planet spun below, seemingly unaware of its fate. "Admiral, all ships are in position," reported one of his officers. "Shall we begin the attack?" Vecren nodded. "Yes." Broadcast the standard surrender message. The Dominion had a procedure for planetary invasions. First, they would send a warning: surrender or be annihilated. Most civilizations gave up immediately. Those who resisted were destroyed. Vecren expected the same from Earth. A transmission was sent in every known human language. The message was simple: "This is the Galactic Dominion. You are outmatched. Surrender immediately, or we will burn your world to ashes." The message repeated for several minutes. No response came. "Strange," the officer muttered. "Most species at least try to negotiate." Vecren dismissed the thought. "Begin the planetary scan. I want full data on their military installations." The Dominion's advanced sensors scanned Earth, but what they found didn't make sense. "Sir, there's something wrong," the scanning officer said, his voice uncertain. Vecren frowned. "What is it?" "There's interference. Some kind of signal is blocking our scans." Vecren's eyes narrowed. "That's impossible. No primitive race has the technology to block Dominion sensors." The officer swallowed. "And yet, we can't get clear readings on their weapons, their defense systems. Nothing." Vecren's instincts, sharpened by decades of war, told him something was very wrong. "Send in the first wave of ground troops. We'll take their capital city and force them to surrender." Thousands of troop transports detached from the warships and descended toward Earth. The Dominion expected little resistance. Their soldiers were equipped with the best armor, the deadliest weapons, and elite training. No species had ever survived a Dominion ground assault. The fleet watched as the transports entered Earth's atmosphere. And then, one by one, they vanished. Vecren's eyes widened. What happened? The communications officer frantically tapped at his controls. We don't know, sir." The troop ships just disappeared. No explosions, no distress signals. Just gone. A cold feeling crept into Vecren's chest. He had never lost an entire wave of troops without a single shot being fired. "Send another wave," he ordered, his voice tight. More transports deployed. They vanished the same way. No wreckage, no bodies, nothing. As if they had never existed. The bridge was silent. The crew exchanged uneasy glances. Vecren clenched his fists. This was not how the invasion was supposed to go. Then something even more terrifying happened. "Sir," a technician shouted, "we just lost contact with 3R warships." Vecren's blood ran cold. "Explain." We don't know, Admiral. Their signals just cut off. One moment they were there, and the next, gone." Vecren turned to his tactical officer. Could humans have hidden defenses in orbit? The officer shook his head, pale-faced. "Impossible, sir. Our sensors should detect them, but we see nothing. No weapons fire, no enemy ships." The tension on the bridge was suffocating. The Dominion fleet, powerful beyond measure, was being picked apart by an unseen force. Vecren took a deep breath. "Activate full fleet defenses. Deploy interceptors. Find out what's attacking us." Small fighter squadrons launched from the Dominion fleet, scanning every inch of space. But the results were the same. Nothing. No enemy ships. No missiles. No trace of what was happening. Then a new report came in, more ships disappearing. Entire warships were vanishing, without a sound, without a trace. Vecren had seen countless battles, but never anything like this. This wasn't war. This was something else. The fleet's panic grew. Soldiers whispered rumors. Was this some kind of human weapon? A new technology beyond Dominion understanding? Or worse, was Earth hiding something far more terrifying? Vecren clenched his jaw. He would not let fear control him. "Open a channel to the High Council," he ordered. The holographic image of the Dominion's rulers appeared before him. "Report, Admiral. Have you crushed the humans yet?" Vecren hesitated. Then he spoke words that had never before been said in Dominion history. "No, we have a problem." The tension aboard the Tyrant's Fist was unbearable. The Dominion had conquered countless worlds, yet now they faced something beyond their understanding. Ships were vanishing. Troops were disappearing. And still, there was no sign of an enemy. Admiral Vecren stood at the center of the command bridge, his golden armor gleaming under the cold artificial lights. His officers, some of the best in the Dominion, looked shaken. He could see it in their eyes. Fear. "Admiral," the scanning officer whispered, "we've lost 20 more ships." Vecren's grip tightened around the console. He forced himself to stay calm. Panic led to mistakes, and mistakes led to death. He turned to his tactical officer. "Deploy recon probes. I want every inch of this system scanned. If something is out there, we will find it." The officer hesitated. "Sir, we already launched probes. He swallowed hard. They vanished too. A heavy silence fell over the bridge. Vecren exhaled slowly. This was not a battle. This was a trap. The Dominion never encountered traps. They were the ones who set them. Something about this primitive planet didn't add up. Humans should have been helpless before the Dominion's might. Yet here they stood, untouched, while the most powerful fleet in the galaxy was being torn apart by something unseen. A new report flashed on the console. Vecren read it, and felt his stomach twist. 3 of their largest battleships had gone dark. No explosion. No distress call. Just silence. His officers were no longer hiding their unease. This was something new, something unknown. Vecren made a decision. Prepare the fleet for a tactical withdrawal. The moment he said it, several officers turned in shock. A Dominion fleet had never retreated. "Admiral," one of his senior commanders protested, "we cannot leave. The Council will." "The Council is not here," Vecren snapped. "I will not lose this fleet to an invisible enemy. We need to regroup, analyze the data, and return with a new strategy." The officer hesitated, then nodded. "Understood, sir." The fleet prepared to pull back from Earth's orbit. Engines roared to life. Formations shifted, and the massive warships turned toward open space. Then, everything went wrong. "Sir," a frantic voice shouted from the communications deck, "something is jamming our warp drives." "What?" Vecren barked. "Who could possibly?" Before he could finish, the Tyrant's Fist trembled violently. Warning alarms blared as the ship's systems flickered. The crew struggled to stabilize the controls. Then a voice, calm and chilling, echoed through the entire bridge. "Leaking so soon?" Vecren's blood froze. It was a human voice, but it hadn't come from their communication systems. It was as if the voice was speaking directly into their minds. The crew looked around in horror. This was impossible. The Dominion had encountered telepathic species before, but none could project their thoughts like this. Not across the vacuum of space, not into a fleet of thousands. Vecren clenched his jaw. "Who are you?" he demanded. The voice chuckled. "That's not the right question, Admiral. The right question is, what have you walked into?" The bridge screens flickered, and for the first time, Vecren saw something. A massive structure was emerging from the shadows of Earth's moon. It had been completely invisible to their scans, but now it revealed itself, a station unlike anything in the Dominion's records. It was not made of steel or metal, but something else, something that shifted and pulsed like a living thing. "Sir," an officer stammered, We have no data on this technology. It's not Dominion, not anything from known space." Vecron's hands curled into fists. This was not how things were supposed to go. The voice spoke again, smooth, unbothered. "You came here thinking we were weak, that we were just another species to be crushed under your heel. You never once considered that we were waiting for you." Vecron's mind raced. They knew we were coming. This wasn't a last-minute defense. This was an ambush. And the Dominion had walked straight into it. The fleet, once so powerful, was now trapped in Earth's orbit. Their enemies were unseen. Their escape was cut off. For the first time in his career, Admiral Vecron realized he might not survive this battle. Admiral Vecron stood frozen on the command deck of the Tyrant's Fist, his golden eyes locked on the impossible structure emerging from the shadows of Earth's moon. It wasn't just a station. It was something alive. The surface shifted, warping like liquid metal, yet holding its form. No energy signatures matched any known species in Dominion records. No transmissions, no heat spikes, just an eerie, silent presence. And it was watching them. "Admiral," the scanning officer whispered, his voice shaking. It's generating a gravitational field. Our ship's air." Vecron didn't need to hear the rest. He could already feel it. The mighty Dominion fleet minus 10,000 warships, enough firepower to reduce entire worlds to rubble, was no longer moving. Engines roared, thrusters burned at full power. But they were going nowhere. A trap. A perfect, inescapable trap. Vecron's pulse pounded in his ears. Fire on the structure. Now. The order was relayed instantly. Hundreds of warships opened fire, unleashing energy beams, plasma rounds, and kinetic railguns. The station didn't move. And then, something horrifying happened. The attacks never reached their target. Energy blasts froze mid-space, hanging there like dying stars. Railgun rounds slowed, twisting in impossible spirals before vanishing entirely. Reality itself seemed to bend around the station. What is this?" one of his officers stammered. Vecron didn't answer. He didn't know. And that terrified him more than anything. A deep hum resonated through the void. The station was activating. Then came the lights. Not from the station, from Earth. Cities, continents, entire oceans glowed with an unnatural energy, as if the entire planet had just awakened. The Dominion had scanned Earth before the invasion. There were no planetary shields, no orbital defense networks, just primitive human technology. But now, the planet pulsed with an unknown force. A force that shouldn't exist. And then, the first ship screamed. Not the crew, the ship itself. The battleship Dominator's wrath twisted violently as its hull began to warp. The metal groaned, stretching like it was being torn apart by invisible hands. Vecron watched in horror as the mighty warship, one of the Dominion's finest, collapsed in on itself. The hull caved inward, shrinking smaller and smaller until it was gone. Not destroyed, not exploded, just gone. The bridge filled with voices of panic. "Sir, we've lost the Dominator's wrath. The fleet it's collapsing. Ships are vanishing. We don't know how." Vecron's claws dug into the console. His fleet was being erased. Not by weapons, by something else. "Sir," the communications officer gasped. "Incoming transmission. From Earth." Vecron's eyes snapped to the main screen. "Put it through." The display flickered, then cleared. A human stood before them. He wore no armor, no uniform of power. He wasn't a general or a warlord, just a man. Dark eyes, a simple black suit, hands clasped behind his back. And yet, Vecron felt an overwhelming presence radiating from him, more dangerous than any warrior he had ever faced. The human smiled, not with arrogance, not with anger. Just certainty. "You must be Admiral Vekrin," the man said, his voice calm. Vekrin's instincts screamed at him. This was wrong. Humans should not be this calm. "Who are you?" Vekrin demanded. The man tilted his head. "That depends. Do you want the simple answer?" Vekrin gritted his teeth. "I want to know what you've done to my fleet." The human's smile didn't fade. "Ah, that answer is much more complicated." Behind him, Earth's glow intensified. Vekrin felt it now, a presence pressing down on him. Something vast, something ancient. And then the man spoke words that sent a chill through the Admiral's bones. "You invaded the wrong planet." The transmission cut, and the real nightmare began. Admiral Vekrin's claws dug into the armrests of his command chair. The human's last words echoed in his mind. "You invaded the wrong planet." The Dominion had conquered over 1,000 worlds. None had ever talked like that. None had ever fought back like this. And now his fleet, once the most feared force in the galaxy, was vanishing. The tyrant's fist trembled beneath him. Not from weapons fire. Something far worse. "Sir," the lead technician's voice cracked with terror, "our systems are failing. We've lost half our fleet's signals. They're just gone." Vekrin turned to the viewport. Ships flickered like mirages, their massive forms warping, twisting, and then nothing. No explosion, no debris, just emptiness. Impossible. This wasn't technology. It wasn't warfare. It was something else. "Find the source," he barked. "What is doing this?" The scanning officer's face was pale, his tendrils coiling in distress. "Admiral, the source is..." The ship lurched, lights flickered. Every display turned to static. Then a new voice crackled through the bridge speakers. Not human, not alien. Something deeper. "You do not belong here." Vekrin's breath caught. It wasn't a voice. It was a presence, a force pushing against his mind, squeezing his thoughts. Something ancient. Something that had been waiting. He slammed his fist on the console. "We are the Dominion. We will not be." The bridge plunged into darkness. For a moment, silence. No alarms. No voices. Then, a single screen flickered on. It showed Earth, but not the Earth they had scanned. Not the primitive world they expected. A planet covered in impossible structures, glowing rooms, shifting metal towers that defied logic. A world that had been hiding its true nature. A world that was alive. A chilling realization settled over Vekrin. Earth was not just another world to conquer. It was a trap. A sudden, deep hum vibrated through his bones. The ship's hull groaned, as if something was gripping it. "Sir," the helmsman choked out. We're being pulled in." Engines screamed at full power. Thrusters burned white-hot. Nothing worked. Vekrin's claws tightened. He had to act now. All ships, retreat, fall back. But there was no response. No fleet left to command. Just his ship. Just him. And Earth's glowing surface, pulling him closer. The trap had closed. Admiral Vekrin's breathing was shallow, his body tense as the tyrant's fist hurtled toward Earth. The ship's thrusters roared, pushing against the unseen force, but it was useless. Nothing in the Dominion's vast archives spoke of a weapon like this. This wasn't technology. This was something older, something unnatural. "Sir, we can't break free." The helmsman shouted. "The planet's gravity is changing." Vekrin's mandibles clenched. Gravity didn't change. Not like this. He stared at the screen. The surface of Earth was no longer what he remembered. No blue oceans, no green lands. Instead, the entire planet shifted before his eyes. Cities rearranged themselves, structures twisting and merging. The ground seemed to pulse, like the heartbeat of some colossal entity. This wasn't a planet. It was alive. And it was waiting for him. "Activate all weapons," Vekrin barked. "Target the surface, fire everything we have." The bridge crew obeyed instantly. The ship's main cannons charged, plasma batteries locked onto key locations, missiles, energy lances, railguns, everything fired at once. But the moment the weapons discharged, they vanished. The projectiles didn't explode. The energy blasts didn't impact. They simply ceased to exist, as if reality itself had swallowed them. The bridge fell silent. The crew stared at their screens, watching in horror as the readings confirmed what their eyes already knew. Vekran's claws dug into his seat. This was beyond war. This was beyond anything he had ever known. Then, the whispers began. Not over the comms. Inside his head. Ancient voices. A language he didn't know, yet somehow understood. You came to conquer. Vekran's vision blurred. The words pressed against his mind, like cold fingers reaching into his thoughts. You believed yourselves gods. His body trembled. He fought to resist, but the presence grew stronger. You are nothing. The ship's hull groaned, the metal twisting as if something massive was breathing around them. Vekran forced himself to move, divert all power to shields, brace for impact. The crew obeyed, but deep down, Vekran knew. There would be no impact. This was not a crash. This was a judgment. The tyrant's fist crossed the final threshold, entering Earth's atmosphere, and reality itself shattered around them. Everything turned black. The ship was gone. The crew was gone. And Admiral Vekran was alone. Vekran opened his eyes, but there was no ship, no crew, only darkness. His body felt weightless, suspended in a void where time had no meaning. He reached out, but his claws found nothing. No walls, no floor, no stars, just an endless abyss. Then the whispers returned. You came to take. You came to destroy. Vekran turned, but there was nothing. Only the voice, deep and ancient, pressing against his mind. You believed your power was absolute. A flicker of light appeared before him, twisting into a vision of his fleet minus 10,000 warships, proud and unstoppable. Then, one by one, they vanished. Not destroyed, not broken, erased. Vekran gasped. His mighty armada, the greatest fleet the Dominion had ever assembled, gone as if it had never existed. He struggled to move, to fight, but he had no body. He was nothing. Then, for the first time, he saw them. Figures standing in the void, their forms shifting between flesh and energy. Humans, but not the fragile creatures he had expected. Their eyes burned with something deeper than anger, something ancient, something powerful. One of them stepped forward, not a warrior, not a soldier. A woman, dressed in simple clothing, her expression calm. Vekran tried to speak, to demand answers, but his voice was gone. The woman's gaze locked onto him, and her words thundered through the void. You were warned. Vekran's mind reeled. Warned? No, that was impossible. Humanity had been primitive. Weak. Wasn't it? The woman lifted her hand, and suddenly, Vekran saw it. Memories that were not his own. 1,000 years of war. 1,000 years of survival. 1,000 years of deception. Humanity had never been weak. They had never been primitive. They had been hiding. Hiding behind false signals, fabricated history, carefully controlled first contact. Waiting. And when the Dominion came, humanity had simply opened the door. Vekran trembled. His species had thought themselves gods. But gods do not beg for mercy. Gods do not lose everything in the blink of an eye. The woman leaned closer, her voice softer now. Your kind will not remember this. They will not remember you. Vekran's mind shattered. He understood now. They weren't just erasing him. They were erasing the Dominion's memory of this war. The invasion would never have happened. His people would never know they had lost. The woman smiled. This is mercy. Vekran tried to scream, But he was already gone. The Galactic Dominion's High Command convened as usual, their council chamber filled with the usual air of superiority. Grand Chancellor Selker stood at the head of the table, his piercing gaze sweeping over his advisors. "There is an unusual matter on today's agenda," one of the senior tacticians said, glancing at his datapad with slight confusion. "A fleet is missing." Selker frowned. "Which fleet?" The advisor hesitated. "The records are inconsistent. It appears to have been a large deployment, but there are no logs, no official orders, no purpose." The room fell silent. The Dominion never lost ships, much less an entire fleet. "And yet, there is no record of battle," the advisor continued. "No distress signals, no wreckage. It's as if the fleet never existed." A murmur spread through the council. Selker narrowed his eyes. Something was wrong. He turned to the Dominion's supreme archivist. "What do the war logs say?" The archivist tapped into the central database. "Strange." His voice trailed off. "There are discrepancies in our records of Earth." Selker straightened. "Earth?" "Yes, Supreme Chancellor." The archivist hesitated. "It appears in our star charts, but there is no official entry in the conquest records. No classification, no intelligence reports, nothing." Selker clenched his mandibles. This was impossible. The Dominion left no worlds unmarked, no species unaccounted for. And yet, before him was a glaring omission, a hole in their perfect history. "How can a planet simply be forgotten?" he muttered. The archivist's hands trembled over his console. "It's almost as if—" He never finished his sentence. The chamber shook. A deep, resounding hum vibrated through the Dominion's capital, rippling through the walls as if reality itself had been disturbed. A single, unreadable message appeared on the main screen. It was not written in the Dominion's language. It was something older. Something human. Selker stared at the alien text, unable to comprehend its meaning, yet feeling its weight settle deep into his bones. A cold, instinctual terror gripped him. Then, the message vanished. The hum faded. The silence returned. The council exchanged nervous glances, unable to explain what had just happened. Selker inhaled deeply, forcing himself to remain composed. "Erase these discussions from the record." The advisors hesitated. "You heard me," he said, more forcefully this time. "If the fleet is gone, then it was never there. If Earth does not exist, then we never knew of it." The council nodded in uneasy agreement. Somehow, they knew this was not an order to be questioned. And so, in that grand chamber where the fate of empires was decided, the last remnants of the war were wiped from history. The war that never happened. The enemy that was never known. The Dominion would go on, blissfully unaware of the truth. But somewhere, far beyond their reach, humanity watched. And they waited. Because one day, the Dominion would make the same mistake again. And next time, there would be no mercy.